Welcome, Selling Coaching fans. My name is Jeff St. Laurent. This is the Tuesday Live Show, and the topic today is how to create $40,000 in 1 week. Yes, I'm going to talk about that, but it's not what you might think. It is what you think, but it's not what you think. Let me just get into that in just a second. But I do record all of my Tuesday live shows, and I put them in my university, sellingcoaching.com. I help coaches transition to a full-time business, and I have a lot of great resources on my website, sellingcoaching.com. You can start off on the homepage. If you enter your name and email address, that's not only going to put you in my email community, so you get some communications from me on a weekly basis. That allows you to, help you with some of this information and let you know of some of the offerings that I give you as well. But also gives you a great audio resource called Launching Your Full-Time Coaching Business: The First 3 Vital Steps. Also, check out my university at sellingcoaching.com. I have a lot of great educational videos that help you with your quest to transition to a full-time business. Now, this topic today is how to create $40,000 with 1 week. And this came from actually yesterday. I was on Facebook doing some work, creating this event, coming up with my topic, etc. And as you would imagine, as you've seen most likely if you're on any social media channel, there's a lot of ads, sponsored ads that show up. And of course, there was a coach talking about how they earned $100,000 in 1 week and how awesome it was. And guess what? Now they're going to teach you how to do the same for yourself. And it's like, just click here, enter your information, and who knows, whatever, what they were selling you from there, whether there's a free resource that led to a course, that led to a webinar, that led to whatever, who knows, to their high-end product, etc., where they're going to teach you how to create $100,000 in a week. Now, it was very interesting because you see that all the time. I was in the fitness industry for a long time. It's no different than, something, all the targeted ads you see, print or magazines or on social media about how to get ripped abs in 6 weeks and blah, blah, blah. Now, if we're sticking on the coaching and this $100,000 in a week, my $40,000 in a week or whatever, is it possible? Yes. Do people do it? Absolutely. 100%. Can you do it? Absolutely. Now, can this person teach you how to do that specifically with their model? No. And I'll say no with a small asterisk that says, like, at least not short term. In other words, if I'm going to teach you how to earn $40,000 or any larger amount of money in 1 week, or this person's going to teach you how to, create $100,000 in a week, can that be done over many years? Absolutely. And some might say in a shorter time period. But for the average person, for the 80% of the people, the 90% of the people, really it's the 99% of the people, right? Because there's the 1% or less of the people that are going to enroll in that person's course, let's say, with that mindset and actually create that result in a shorter amount of time, let's say in less than a year or 6 months or something like that. There's too many variables that go into it. And that's what people don't account for, is there's so many variables that we're not considering or we're not talking about when anyone creates an extraordinary or extraordinary type of results in a short amount of time. And they're marketing that. There's too many variables that go into that. So, and I'll break down a little bit today of what I mean by that. In a case of where I've done things like that, not $100,000 in a week. That would be fantastic. But my best ever is $40,000 in a week. And the point is that if I just marketed that, at least to me, that's very elusive, and it's not right, because how I was able to do that, or any other moments where I had, a great day or a great month or a great week or whatever, a great hour, or whatever it was, where I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I created that amount of sales in that amount of time. It was never like a method that I'm going to say like, oh, you can do this too. It was the fundamental skill sets and the cumulative work that I had done over many years, a handful to a decade plus years, not even counting prior to getting into, let's say, the coaching industry, and what, if any, connections and skill sets I've learned and developed prior to getting into coaching, which I know for me was tremendously helpful, meaning how I was able to leverage getting into coaching right out of the gates and start creating some good income sooner than later was I was in the fitness industry. I had clients. I've sold packages before. I was in a service-based industry, selling personal training, things like that, groups, one-on-one. I had that experience. I taught group fitness classes. I presented myself. I was a trainer for a national company where I traveled around doing 3-day workshops and presentations on training instructors on how to teach a program, right? So I had specific training to upscale me, which all of those skill sets translated tremendously into what I'm doing now. So I'm starting on day one, ground zero, with a lot of those selling skill sets, presentation skill sets, which to me, that's that's everything in this business. And then having some connections and relationships that I could start to leverage that translated into me getting some clients, opening up opportunities. Whereas if you're having that stuff and you're starting from ground zero, it doesn't mean you can't create it. It just means it's going to take a lot longer to start to create that. That's just a fact. If you're not comfortable with presenting, I work with clients all the time who are like, all right, let's, maybe talk about doing a presentation, a webinar, a little small event for friends, family, for whoever. And it's just that's just so mind blowing, which that's how it was for me, 20 plus years ago when I started, even more than that when I started in the fitness industry. And so there's a lot of those factors which okay, so now this person's going to teach you with their step-by-step on, we're going to do this and we're going to run a Facebook ad, and then we're going to do this and we're going to send them to an opt-in, and then we're going to run a 45-minute presentation, or whatever their method is. It's a viable way of doing it. Yet you might not be ready for that. Your skill sets aren't ready for that yet. Your message isn't ready for that. The confidence isn't ready for that. You got to have an audience that's even a captive audience, that even if they were there, might not be ready for it. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of factors that go into it. And so that's why when I teach you, I'm not saying, hey, don't enroll in those programs or, whatever, like check them out, be my guest. And it doesn't mean you can't create some success or learn some things. I just feel like, especially in this message is catered more to someone in those beginning stages. Beginning stages to me means in the first, 3 to 5 years of your business. Those are the really beginning stages of your business. And it doesn't necessarily get easier after that. You're more experienced, but you still got to fight to stay in the game. I've been doing this since full-time since 2004. I don't take for granted at all the longevity of where I'm going, and hopefully I'm going to be doing this in whatever capacity for another 10, 15, 20 years, to whatever doesn't make sense for me anymore, And so with that being said, I'll say it like this. There were some times where, like, for instance, the $40,000 in a week that I created, and this was, I think, last year, and I had run a program. It was called the GoPro Challenge. It was a 14-day challenge that I had been working on for probably a good 6 months before I launched it. I had worked with somebody to help me brainstorm and pull, help me pull my ideas together. And he was the technical piece in terms of, we're going to run Facebook ads to grow our audience. We were going to, he was going to kind of do the website back-end technical pieces, taking all the thoughts and ideas and putting them into a format online where we could have a sales page, where we could have an opt-in. We could have the back-end where the 14 days, they could, when they signed up, they got their username and password, they could log into it, right? I didn't know how to do any of that stuff, right? So he helped me with some of that stuff and put that all together. And then it was building the campaign to start marketing to my audience, promoting it, and then going from there. And then it was running the 14-day challenge. And my first 14-day challenge, I think it was like 62 people that had gone through it, right? So I had great numbers. It was $50 a head. And then at the end of that, that's where I made my offering for doing one of my group programs, and then also for one-on-one. And it was through the sales of the 62 or so people signing up for the program, but it was mostly at the end. That's where the $40,000 in revenue came from. It came from me selling my group program and doing one-on-one coaching, and I had a really good price point for each of them, and I got a bunch of people taking advantage of that. And over the course of the week, following, I had sales calls, if you will, for people that were interested, and I enrolled them in my program. And by the end of that week, my sales had accumulated to over $40,000, right? So I could teach you that system, and hey, let's come up with your own 14-day challenge, and let's come up with a system to start to drive people to create an opt-in for that. And then let's start to build your challenge out. Let's start marketing it to your audience, right? And you might not even have an audience, right? But the point is I could take you through the structure of that, and then we could run the challenge. You could take people through this challenge, and then on the back end of that, I could teach you how do we follow up, and how do we run our sales calls, and how do we sell them into a 5-month group program, or any type of a program, or maybe your one-on-one coaching. Right? And it doesn't mean that you're going to create $40,000 in that week. Maybe you could blow that number away. Maybe you do $4,000, right? Which is a big deal. But either way, you have that system and that structure that you can build up over time, right? But the point is I could teach you that, and it doesn't mean that that's a bad thing, but it's also very misleading because you're going into it with the wrong expectations. And that's why there's so many things in there that I just said that would overwhelm the average coach coming into this. Like just the thought of selling a coaching program. I've never done that before. Even the thought of getting a one-on-one client, maybe that you've gotten a few, whatever, but they haven't had that many. Never mind having sales calls. Ooh, how do I follow up? What do I say? What's the process I run people through? Right? That's all. Those are all fundamental structures that need to be in place. Those are the things that I had been working on and practicing on for decades, really, coming from personal training, when you think about it like that, right? But at least 15 years plus at that point, even as a coach, never mind the experience I had prior to that, to become comfortable with that, selling, creating content, creating the 14 days, recording that, giving it to the guy to put in the back end, how to come up with the marketing copy. He helped me with some of that, right? But I had all the ideas and had to pull it together, right? So those aren't just things you're able to do right out of the gates, and that are going to overwhelm the average coach starting off. And so that's why I'm saying so it's not like that's not possible. It is absolutely possible, and you can absolutely do that. I just want you to start to understand the time frames with which you're working in, right? You could build your way up to that and work on some of the fundamentals. So when you work with me one-on-one as a mentor coach, if you work with me in my 5-month group program, right, I'm starting to build the fundamentals. I'm not coming into this. I'm not marketing my one-on-one mentor coaching in my 5-month program saying, earn $40,000, in these 5 months, or I'm not promising, any income results. Of course, you're going to earn money as a result of what I do. Absolutely. Guaranteed. It's just how much and when we can't tell you, and how consistently that happens. But I will guarantee you're going to earn income if you start to work through and build and pull in the structures that I teach you. And that's where, as you do them more and more, that's where you start to understand it more. And that's where you can start to put yourself in a situation, now that you have an audience, now that you have the expertise, now that you have the skill sets, we can pull together a program like I did and create some great results in a small amount of time. But it's not the time, that's what I want you to start to see. It's not the time frame of that week, right? That $40,000 was created over years. Really, it was created over years. You can quantify it, and it sounds a lot better, right? It's like someone who has, a 6-pack abs. It wasn't created over 6 months. It was created over years, even before they actually started training for it. It's what they learned and the experiences, the failures, the successes, the education along the way. It's all the same. So just be aware of when you start to see those things. I think we know, all right. But yeah, it's possible. But don't get duped into it and set it as an expectation. That's when you set yourself up for failure. That's why most people fail in places like that, because they're not going into the right expectation. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. Hopefully this sets you on the right path to start and motivates you to start work in the trenches, work on the fundamentals, get better at the selling skill set, get better at your presentation skills, putting your message out there, getting confident, building the structures in terms of your qualification process, some of the basic structures with your weekly email, things like that. Those are the things that allow you to build a foundation for setting yourself up later on for, as you have more of an audience, for some of those, higher income moments where you're like, wow, I can't believe that just happened. And now how can I do that again? Anyways, until then, stay in the fundamentals. And if you know that you need some help with that, don't be afraid to reach out to me. Head over to sellingcoaching.com, fill out the form at the bottom of the Work With Me page. I'll follow up. We'll create a relaxed conversation and decide where